Hello, fellow devoted and downtrodden, and welcome back to GSC 101 on They Came From Below. It's Tom, very lowest of men of 6++ here. I'm back once again with some GSC goodness for you. If you haven't watched part 1, which was all about the GSC datasheets and units, I would highly recommend watching this first, and then diving into this one on the detachments, because it's important to know what the units you're playing with are in the first place. I will reference a whole bunch of them when we talk through the detachments and how they work. And the two really are intended to go very much together. So what we're going to be doing today is working our way through the many detachments available to the Genestealer cults, talking through how they function, what the playstyle is like, and how you can get the best of them on the tabletop using a whole bunch of wisdoms. Now, obviously, some of these are more played than others. I will endeavour to let you know where they sit in the competitive landscape, what we've seen out there so far, and try and get you a clear sense of some of the options available to you, the GSC player. Please do hit like and subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you like. If there's anything else you'd like to see covered in the future, let me know as well. I'm always very happy to work to your demands. If you would like to sign up as a YouTube member and support 6++ financially, we'd massively appreciate it. We've got over 100 YouTube members now, and we'd love to have more. There is, of course, the option of getting some specific coaching with myself. If you'd like to level up on GSC as well, I'd be more than happy to work with you. Just let us know, drop me a message in our Discord. Okay, let's dive into it. So we're going to start with perhaps one of the most iconic GSC detachments, which is the Host of Ascension. Now, anyone who played Host of Ascension, who played the Index GSC, the original package we released with, will recognize a lot of what happens here. Host of Ascension is very much centered around drop shooting, deep strike attacks, and particularly working with bricks of neophytes, which we'll get into for several reasons in a moment. If we start with the detachment rule, which is a perfect ambush, this gives you sustain hits 1 and ignores cover on GSC units that have been set up on the battlefield as reinforcements until the end of your following fight phase, and that's your following fight phase. So there's a number of important dimensions to assess here. The first is that sustain hits 1 and ignores cover obviously go great on GSC shooting. Combos really well with the AP stacking from Ridge Runners, alluded to in the first episode. Works especially well on neophyte shooting because all of that can go up to sustain hits 1, ignores cover, and you can have other ways to buff it as well. But it also works on the melee, and it also works with units that you are rapid ingressing because it lasts until your next fight phase. So units that you bring in via rapid ingress can also benefit from this, so you can use this on push combat unit to give them sustain hits 1 until the end of your next fight phase. So it's a very flexible and powerful rule. I think it works very well on the shooting units, but you can also definitely get use out of this on the combat units as well. If we look at the enhancements, there are a number here. There are some hits and some misses. First up, we have Prowling Adjutant. This is 15 points, and it gives a Genestealer Cults model a reactive move of D6 when the bearer comes within 9 inches. This is absolutely fine, situationally useful, but I tend to find it's not a must-have. A must-have, on the other hand, is the very powerful A Chink in Their Armor. This gives a Genestealer Cults model lethal hits when it is set up on the board until the end of your next fight phase. So this is extremely powerful. It works on the range weapons, not the melee. But what you can get with this is a 20 brick of neophytes, ideally with a Primus, that has full rerolls to hit from the Primus, and when coming in as reinforcements is set up with sustain hits 1, lethal hits, and ignores cover. There are stratagems in here to boost that even further, but the reroll output on this is phenomenally powerful, gives you a unit that can slap a huge amount of wounds onto almost any target in the game. Very, very powerful, and the Chink in Your Armor Primus unit is definitely a linchpin of how this detachment plays. Next up, we have another one that's very, very reasonable as well, which is Our Time Is Nigh. This is a Genestealer Cults model, and once per battle, it gives the bearer's unit a +2 to charge. So this is lovely. This helps you get a combat unit into the fray more consistently. There are a number of ways to exploit this, but I really like it on either Aberrants or a pure strain brick with the Patriarch. And essentially what this gives you is a unit that can be re-delivered into the fight successfully via Deep Strike a second time, because that +2 to charge gets you just hitting at 7 on the charge to make combat. Really, really nice. And also means that you can use the unit once, bring it back up into reserves for reasons we'll explore below, then bring it back in somewhere else, get that +2 to charge, as long as you have a CP in case you need to reroll the 7. Pretty consistent charge delivery. So I really like Our Time Is Nigh on a combat unit. Finally, we have Assassination Edict, another cheap enhancement at 15 points, and it gives you a GSC models unit gets +1 to hit when targeting a character unit. Now, this again is a very flexible thing because there are lots of combat units that have characters in the game, but also big monsters. It goes really well on a Benefactor squad of neophytes with lethal hits and +1 to hit. You slap a lot of damage through a character unit. It works fine on a Primus unit as well, more accurate, and with rerolls is very, very nice. And obviously combat units like Aberrants or Metamorphs or Melee Acolytes also really, really like this. So I think of these, the two obvious build arounds in terms of your damage are a Chink in Their Armor and Assassination Edict. These both work really well on neophyte bricks with supporting characters. But if you're playing into the combat side, which I love to do in Host of Ascension, and then you can also take Our Time Is Nigh to help make that charge delivery a little bit smoother. If we look at the stratagems for Host of Ascension, you have Coordinated Trap. This gives 2 GSC units +1 to wound in the shooting or fight phase against a target. Very powerful, but the 2 CP cost means that a lot of the time this is more difficult to budget for. So it's going to depend if you have the resources to spend on this in a game. Much more immediately accessible and powerful is Primed and Readied. You can use it in shooting or the fight phase. This gives a Genestealer cult unit from your army that's shooting or fighting critical hits on 5s. So obviously that means sustained on 5s if you're using the detachment rule. If you have, say, Chink in Their Armor or you have a Biophagus in a melee unit, that also means you're getting lethal hits on 5s, which can take an Aberrant brick to some really powerful places, can take the Benefactus unit to some really powerful places. This is one of those strats that you're just going to be using all the time to massively amp up the damage on your drop units. So Primed and Readied is a really, really powerful tool. Next up, we have Tunnel Crawlers. This is another really powerful tool and a reason to run Host of Ascension. It gives you a 6-inch deep strike on a GSC unit. It's not able to charge in the same turn. This again goes incredibly well on neophytes because it makes it very difficult for the opponent to screen out your drops and your damage. It helps you get closer to the fray, and you can also screen out enemy movement with it as well. So the 6-inch deep strike is a very powerful tool and a real reason to run Host of Ascension. Next up, we have Lying in Wait. This enables you to move a Cult Ambush token. Cult Ambush tokens have become a lot less relevant in recent times. Essentially, I don't think this comes up an awful lot. It allows you to move a token closer to the enemy lines, but I just don't think it's as hugely important now that so many of our GSC units are returning via Deep Strike. What absolutely is important is Return to Shadows. This is a very powerful tool for Host of Ascension. After an enemy unit has shot your unit, it gives your unit the ability to go back into reserves. You have to get a shot first, so there are limits on this. But this means that if you have, say, 20 brick of neophytes, you can absorb 1 shooting attack from the opponent, go back into reserves, regrow the neophytes via the icon gradually over time, and then go down and attack somewhere else. It's really good on things like Aberrants. It works fine on the 10 brick of Pure Strange with the Patriarch as well. If you can avoid the enemy getting sort of massive activations into a unit, it lets you protect it, deny a kill, and then threaten them somewhere else. So it's the combination of this with the drop rules and the damage from the detachment that really enables you to reapply damage and effect on the board. Finally, we have a Deadly Snare. This is a nice situational stratagem. In your opponent's charge phase, after an enemy has declared a charge, you can inflict on a 2-up D3 mortal wounds and on a 5-up 3. Annoying and nice, can help you finish off a damaged unit or push a little bit of damage through a hard target. Situational, but definitely nice to have. So if we're thinking about Host of Ascension and its application, the killer things that you have excellent deep strike delivery, huge amounts of deep strike damage that you can really amplify, and this gets an awful lot of damage out of neophyte bricks. So what you've tended to see with Host of Ascension most of the time is very neophyte heavy lists, lots of 20-man bricks to drop in and do damage. You need to have enough board presence, and you need Ridge Runners in the backfield for boosting up the AP of the shooting, but you can also play quite fun yo-yo games with Aberrant bricks going out, hitting things, getting shot, disappearing, or likewise with the Patriarch and Pure Strains as well. It is primarily a shooting detachment and a deep striking detachment. Board control is its primary concern. You want to make sure you have enough out in front of you to stop the opponent simply screening off all the places you can drop. But Host of Ascension is very, very powerful, especially when it goes first and can get the jump on the opponent. Definitely one of the strongest GSC detachments, one that's been very popular, especially for fans of neophytes. We've seen it an awful lot in recent times because the damage it can put out is really quite something. Sometimes 2-up save things, and particularly minuses to hit, can make the neophyte bricks a little bit swingy, but in general, extremely powerful damage dealing detachment that is very much for fans of the original drop in and blast things vibe of 9th edition GSC and Index era GSC. Okay, taking it forwards, we will look at the Xena Congregation. Now, this is one of the more unusual detachments. It definitely has to play. Its detachment rule, Unquestioning Fanaticism, gives you rerolling advanced and charge rolls for Acolyte Hybrids, Metamorphs, and Neophyte units whilst they're led by characters. And if the character is a Magus, Primus, or Acolyte Iconward, that model gets a Feel No Pain 3-up ability whilst leading that unit. Now, the Feel No Pain 3-up, not especially relevant, but the rerolls to advance and charges definitely help in terms of delivery and getting places. This is a detachment that packs some advance and charge, so it's very nice to have it. If we look at the enhancement, you've got the Magus, Primus, or Iconward can take the Genestealer's Reliquant. This is 5 points. It lets you reroll Battle Shock tests for the bearer's unit. If you have 5 points left, no reason not to plug this somewhere. You can see already the dependence on Magus, Primus, and Acolyte Iconward is one of the sort of limitations of the detachment, and probably one of the things that holds it back a little bit is 2 of those characters aren't that common, and the Primus is very expensive these days. Next up, we have Denunciator of Tyrants. Again, a Magus, Primus, or Acolyte Iconward model. Each time a model makes an attack that targets a character unit, you can add +1 to the hit roll and add +1 to the wound roll. So you get a little bit of that drop Neophyte Brick energy, or you get a very punchy combat unit. Metamorphs really like +1 to hit and wound. I think Denunciator of Tyrants is definitely something you want to build around if you are looking to use the Xenocreed Congregation. Next up, we have Deeds that Speak to the Masses. This is particularly saucy. This is 25 points and probably the other build around, or one of the other build arounds in the detachment. This gives a Magus, Primus, or Iconward model just the ability to give you 2 additional Resurgence points. So that means you have 12 in the game at the start. This is obviously going to allow you to buy additional Handflamer Acolytes, additional Metamorphs. It would let you bring back potentially 3 bricks of 10 Metamorphs across the game, and I do think Metamorphs are probably the strongest unit in the Xenocreed Congregation, so there's no reason not to take this if you're playing Xenocreed Congregations. Just flood the board with even more chaff, which is very much the vibe of the detachment. Finally, we've got Incendiary Inspiration, wonderful name. Magus, Primus, or Acolyte Iconward, the bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advances. So I think this is particularly fun on an Acolyte Iconward, where he can be running in a Metamorph brick, giving them a 4-up Feel No Pain. The whole unit already has Scout, and then it could also advance and charge. I think for gumming up the opponent and applying some forward pressure, that's a really nice use. So actually, 3 of these enhancements have a lot of use. It does take you up over probably, you're essentially losing a unit to jam all 3 of those in, but I think Denunciator, Deeds, and Incendiary Inspiration are all really valuable and offer you something very useful for playing the game. If we look at the detachment, you've got Vengeance for the Martyr. Essentially, this happens when a character model is destroyed, and basically you can get reroll hit rolls of 1s when Acolyte hybrids, or neophytes make an attack that targets the enemy unit that destroyed your character. But if you'd lost a Magus, Primus, or Iconward, you can get rerolls to hit instead. So this is going to require careful and strategic use, but if a heavy target of the opponent's kills one of your characters, being able to suddenly get your other units rerolling all their hits into them is really, really powerful. Next up, we have Frenzied Devotion. This is a very tasty combat buff for Acolytes, Hybrid, Metamorphs, or Neophytes. It gives you an additional attack and additional weapon skill. So suddenly your combat units, melee Acolytes or melee Metamorphs, go up a gear, become incredibly dangerous, give you a little bit of that Brood Surge energy, which we'll get to later, but you also take on Hazardous. So I think this is really powerful for taking Metamorphs in particular up a level, especially if you start comboing it with some of the other buffs available here as well. Next up, you have Tireless Fervor. In your charge phase, Acolyte, Hybrid, Metamorph, or Neophyte unit that hasn't yet declared a charge is eligible even if it advanced or fell back. And if it is targeting an enemy unit that's already in engagement range with a friendly character unit, you can re-roll the charge roll. This is very situationally useful. Fallback and charge on your stodgy bricks can help you gum up the opponent, and gumming the opponent up in lots of bodies is very much the way that Xenocreed plays. It's a bit more aggressive and on board in its use than, say, Host of Ascension. So getting another source of advance and charge, giving you 2, and getting access to fallback and charge is also nice. The character element feels situational. If our characters are in combat, they're usually dead. Next up, we have Transcendent Celerity, another fantastic sort of name. And this gives one of your units Assault. So if you've got a bunch of Hand Flamers, you're already advancing and charging, being able to turn on Assault and use your Hand Flamers as well, I think is really, really effective. and a little bit of advanced shoot and charge neophytes to shoot, run, shoot, get onto a point feels particularly useful as well. Lots of 1 CP valuable stratagems here, but next up we have the Downtrodden Rise. This is an end of reinforcement step. If you have no cult ambush markers on the battlefield, for 2 CP, you can just set your unit up regardless. So it gets around the situation where you don't have any cult ambush markers to bring things in through. Now, again, as we've talked about before, because you have just a deep strike delivery for your returning units now, this is much less important than it used to be, but it is a very nice sort of situational way of getting an expensive, almost sort of rapid ingress of a cult ambush unit to bring it back into the game sooner. So if you have saved CP, this is a nice way of applying pressure, keeping the tempo going, shoving yet more bodies onto points, which, as we've alluded to, is what Xenocreed is doing, shoving all of the chaffy units in GSC and trying to drown the opponent in bodies. Finally, we have the Path of Anguish in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit is shot. An Acolyte or Neophyte unit that was destroyed, that has had one or more of its models destroyed, can then make essentially a surge move into engagement range with that enemy unit. So again, if things have got close, things have got intimate, the opponent's tried to shoot you off, hasn't managed to deal with it, you can continue to tie them up and gun them up. So if we think about how Xenocreed plays, it really likes Metamorphs, it really likes Acolyte hybrids, it really likes Neophytes as well. But this is playing very much in a sort of drowning the opponent in bodies on the ground kind of way. Some transports, Goliath trucks would be useful for helping you get into the fray. It can push some advancing charges to buy space for itself nice and early in the game. And it also amps up and packs nice damage for particularly the Metamorph units to really, really push through hurt on the opponent as well. Some great enhancements. I think it's harder to play just because of the kinds of units it buffs are very fragile, but obviously getting 3 resurrections on Metamorph bricks and potentially running 30 of these feels phenomenally powerful in Xenocreed Congregation. Definitely one of the less explored detachments. I only really know of Danny Porter getting any joy out of this, but I definitely think there's something there. It's just not for the faint-hearted. Okay, moving it along. We have my personal favourite of the GSC detachments, which is the Biosanctic Brood Surge. Now, this is pure combat Genestealer aberrant nonsense, and has been the one I've had the most competitive joy with. I think if you're starting GSC, this is probably where I would begin. The detachment rule is very simple. Hypermorphic Fury gives you +1 to your charges and +1 to attacks on the charge for aberrant, Biophagus, and pure strain Genestealers units. These are all good things to have. These are all great units to take. They all love the additional charge boost, and there are more charge boosts in the detachments, and they also love the additional attacks. This gives you, pure strain bricks with 50 attacks, aberrant bricks with 4 attacks apiece. The Biophagus units in the melee acolytes or metamorph units go up an enormous amount in terms of their damage as well. So it's just straightforward combat boosts, really, really powerful. The enhancements are also great. We have Predatory Instincts, 20 points for an Abominant, Biophagus, or Patriarch model. This gives models in the Bearer's unit infiltrators, and once per battle round, a free heroic intervention. So this gets you to an Abominant and some Aberrants mid-board at the start of the game. Very powerful, as Aberrants are a bit slow, lets you put some forward pressure on immediately, and free heroic intervention is obviously nice. You're always taking Predatory Instincts in Brood Surge. Next up, we've got the Biomorph adaptation, a GSC classic, taking an Abominant or Patriarch up to additional AP and additional damage. The Patriarch loves this. Twin-linked Dev Wound Claws with damage 3 are extremely powerful and helps his unit to blend. So a Patriarch with this is a staple in Brood Surge lists. Next up, you have Mutagenic Regeneration for 10 points. The same 3 units, Abominant, Biophagus, or Patriarch, can heal a single wound in the Bearer's unit in each command phase. This is fine, but merely fine. A Tar Pit unit of Aberrants with this is fine. If you have 10 points left over, you'd take it. I don't think you would otherwise. Next up, we have Alien Majesty, which sits in a similar place for me. It's 15 points, and it takes 1 OC off the OC of enemy units that are in engagement range with the Bearer's units to a minimum of 1. I've run this enhancement many times, and I have forgotten that I have it most of the time. It's definitely nice to have and cute, but the real money in this is Predatory Instincts and Biomorph adaptation. If we take it through to the stratagems, you have Evasive Vanguard. This lets you move a blip that is removed by the opponent, move it an additional 6, and then bring a pure strange Genestealers back from it. You simply don't use it now that Cult Ambush works differently. Much more relevant is Saintly Paroxysm. This is in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit destroys a GSC character, and you can On a 2-up, inflict D3 mortal wounds, but if the character model is an abominant or patriarch, you inflict 2d3 instead. So being able to inflict mortals on enemy units as your stuff dies, particularly the abominants who have to be killed twice effectively with their 2-up regeneration, this is fantastic into elite units that don't heal and the units that we struggle to deal with. I've found it really good for dealing with Death Shroud. I found it great for chipping wounds off things like Magnus as you do battle with him. And it's a very useful tool to remember you have in the locker. Elves also absolutely hate it, as you can melt most of an elf unit in combat, even if they hit you first, which is really, really effective. Next up, we have Gene Twisted Muscle. This is a money stratagem. Aberrants, Biophagus, or Pure Strain units can get +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. This just helps Pure Strains or Aberrants hurt almost anything in the game. It's also really good on Metamorphs. You're going to use this whenever you need to crack a hard target like a monster or vehicle. Really, really effective. You have next up Hypermetabolic Vigor, which is another amazing stratagem that gives you 6-inch pile-in and consolidate and the ability to coast around units. This is extremely powerful. It allows you to hit a screen, kill the screen with one unit, coast through with another unit, say Aberrant, into the hard target behind it and do damage to that as well. It gives you mission play, it gives you screen clearance, it gives you all sorts of very nice tricks, and it's one of the best things about this detachment. Next up, we have Stimulated Biosurge. This enables you with an Aberrant, Biophagus, or Pure Strain unit to boost your charge by 1 for each selected target of that charge to a maximum of 3. You already have +1 to charge in this detachment, so this stacks and can give you potentially up to +4 for charge. It's brilliant for delivering a unit from Deep Strike. If you can come in on +1, select 2 targets, get an additional +2, be making a 6 with a reroll charge, save a couple of CP to use this. It helps you to immediately get Aberrants or Genestealers or Biophagus units into the game, and is one of the most powerful ways to apply pressure in Brood Surge, because you can effectively be rapid ingressing one combat unit from reserves, pushing out, delivering another one through the Deep Strike charge, and applying pressure incredibly aggressively. And it means that your reinforcements, despite being melee units, can be immediately game relevant and get back into the fight. So another incredibly powerful tool. Just remember to have a CP for a reroll as well. Finally, we have Biohorror Revelation. This is a situational opponent shooting phase tool that you can use on one of the aforementioned units. Every time a unit within 9 is selected to shoot, it must take a leadership test subtracting 1, and if it fails, it's at -1 to hit. In clutch moments, in pivotal parts of the board, and especially against armies without rerolls, this can occasionally throw off the enemy in a vital shooting turn. It's good into things like Guard or Tau at a pivotal moment, but it's a lot cuter and more situational than the others, and it depends on failed leaderships as well. So, Brood Surge is a phenomenal detachment. I think it's probably the most consistently successful and easy to play of the options that GSC currently have. It just makes the go fast and hit things vibes of some of our favourite units, the Aberrants and the Pure Strains, really, really effective. And it has a very good combat toolkit for causing problems for the opponent. So I highly recommend Brood Surge. This is definitely the one I would start with. And we have made additional videos already on how to play and get the most out of the detachment. So do feel free to watch those if you are interested. Okay, moving it along, we are taking it to Outlander Claw. So this was the first GSC detachment to make waves competitively after Innes Wilson, Danny Porter, and Eric Lathuris started playing it. It is about bikes, it is about going fast, it is about transports, and it is about OC above all else, and playing the objective game mercilessly at speed. The detachment rule is rapid takeover, so when a GSC mounted or GSC vehicle unit is not battle shocked, it gets +1 to its OC. That gives you Rock Grinders with OC4, Ridge Runners with OC4, Goliath Trucks with OC3, and Jackals with OC2. It also gives your Atalan Jackals sticky objectives, so if they start on an objective in your command phase, you can sticky it and it remains under your control. This is particularly good if you go first, because you can have Jackals scout to the middle, sticky objectives, then push on and cause trouble for the opponent, or retreat. The opponent has to come and clear the objectives and put things on it, and then you can counter-attack. So it's a very powerful. The sticky objectives and using Jackals effectively to control parts of the board gives you alternative ways to exploit the primary game. And just boosting all the OC on the vehicles, this has been nerfed, it used to double it, gives you an awful lot of OC to play with between Acolytes, Neophytes, Jackals, and Transports to make life on the objectives really annoying for the opponent. You're seeing people running Goliath Trucks filled with Neophytes to give you a really obnoxious package with a lot of OC in it. And Goliath Rock Riders are already a great unit in Outlander Claw, so they get even better because of this. The enhancements are a mixed bag. You don't see many of them, if I'm honest. I've tried a couple of them and I haven't been massively impressed. We have Serpentine Tactics that gives a mounted model, so a Jackal Alphas for the Atalan Jackals, shoot and fall back. It's okay, merely situationally okay. You have the cartographic data leech, and this one perhaps has the most application. 10 points, you take it on a GSC model, whilst the bearer is embarked in a transport. Each time that transport is selected to shoot, until the end of the phase, you can improve the ballistic skill of the range weapons equipped in the transport as a result of the firing deck ability by 1. So this is a nice throwaway 10-pointer to have on a transport. You could have, I've seen people run multiple Reductor Saboteurs in a transport so that you can have a bunch of demo charges being thrown out at +1 to hit. But it also helps an embarked bunch of neophytes or acolytes with demo charges with another character involved get a little bit more juice as well. So this one you often see taken as a 10-point cheap plugin. Starfall Shells gives a mounted model only the ability to give an opponent -1 to hit after you've hit it. It's okay. You want to be confirming kills, so I don't think the -1 to hit matters that much. Next up, you have Assault Commando, and I've had fun with this one. This one is certainly enjoyable, but it doesn't play into the way Outlander traditionally likes to play. This gives a GSC model's unit full rerolls to hit if they have disembarked from a transport that turn at range. So I've experimented with a Handflamer Acolyte squad with demo charges here to get a whole bunch of rerolls on the demo charges, which are naturally quite swingy to hit otherwise. So you can have a demo charge unit with full rerolls to hit and wound against a target on objectives. It is okay. I just think it ends up being an expensive package and not necessarily one that punches up particularly well or synergizes with how the rest of the detachment plays. If we look at the stratagem toolkit, you'll start to see what we're trying to do here. So you have along shadowed trails. This is the traditional move a blip token around, and it's less and less important. I guess it is slightly relevant on Atalan Jackals, as they probably do like being rezzed and coming back from a blip. And it just means if the opponent destroys one, you've got a chance to move it somewhere else. So in an emergency, this isn't terrible. It just doesn't tend to come up that much these days. Next up, you have Devoted Crew. This is a very powerful tool here, which gives you -1 damage in the shooting or fight phase on a Rock Grinder or a Goliath truck. This makes your vehicles deceptively annoying for a lot of things to shift and buys you turns with those very OC-rich vehicles on objectives. Well worth using. You just have to get good at calculating when it's going to help you and when it's not. Melter, don't worry about it. But damage 2, damage 3 absolutely despises this and gives you a very powerful resilience tool that GSC often lack. Close range shootout gives GSC mounted or GSC vehicles lethal hits within 18. Just doesn't come up very much or matter very much, is my honest assessment. You don't have the volume to get the most out of this, so the -1 damage is the standout so far. We also have Rapid Feint. This gives you a reactive move of up to 6 for Ridge Runners or Atalan Jackals. This is great. This can cause disruption. It can block off opponents' efforts to engage you. It can block off charges. It can get you out of dodge altogether and away from being charged. And it's a always nice tool to have. It's a shame it only works on Ridge Runners or Jackals, but every now and again you're going to want to save one of those units, and being able to reactive move or reactive move forwards to push on the pressure is definitely very worthwhile. Next up, we have Death Maneuvering, which gives either Ridge Runners or Atalan Jackals a 4-up invulnerable save in the shooting phase. This is particularly good on Ridge Runners. Sometimes Ridge Runners get targeted by nasty high AP shooting. Being able to bounce that on a 4-up is really good and helps them duel at range with las cannon type units really effectively. You just have to know when it's actually worth it. For Jackals, probably not likely to save them unless you're building into big bricks, which isn't typically the common way to play them right now. You often see them in smaller squads rather than larger ones. But if the opponent has undercommitted, this might just cause them some issues. Finally, we have one of the other big draws of the detachment, which is Encircling the Prey. This is at the end of your opponent's fight phase, and it allows you to take a mounted or vehicle unit up and put it into strategic reserves. The biggest application of this is taking Ridge Runners, so you can then apply Ridge Runner shooting in a crucial part of the board. So Laser Ridge Runners love this, and this is one of the better detachments to play Laser Ridge Runners in. Being able to take them up into the sky, redeploy them somewhere else is great, but it can also help you move your OC transport contents, neophytes, acolytes in Rock Grinders or Goliath trucks around as well. It's certainly powerful to do that. So keeping CP so you can suddenly reapply pressure somewhere else is 100% a very valid strategy. So Outlander Claw gives you lots of vehicles. You're going to take Ridge Runners, Rock Grinders, and Goliath trucks. You're going to take some Atalan Jackals for sticky objectives and extra OC. You're going to fill those transports with chaff, Flamer Acolytes, Neophytes, lots more OC toting models. And you're going to absolutely flood the midboard with OC. And then you're going to pop things like the reactive move, or the -1 damage, or the invuln where you need it, to deny enemy efforts to hit you back, and then drown them in flamers, demo charges, mining lasers, all of those little counter shots, the little grenade chip mortals from Jackals coupled with grenades from Reductus Saboteurs. It's a very powerful detachment, particularly into enemy sort of chaff armies and anything with lighter targets and lighter saves. It doesn't love 2-up saves because of the types of damage it has available, but what it absolutely can do is play the primary rigorously by just shoving so much OC mid-board that the opponent really struggles to clear through it without you getting up a huge primary score. It takes a little bit of skill to play. It's not for the faint-hearted. I found it much harder to play than Host or Bio, but it is undeniably powerful in the right hands and has achieved some very, very successful things across the edition. Moving it along, we've got probably the least seen detachment, which is the Brood Brother Auxilia. Now, this is the Guard Soup detachment. It allows you to include Astra Militarum units up to 1,000 points. You have to have a GSC Warlord, and Astra Militarum units lose orders. So there are certain restrictions. You can't have aircraft, commissars, epic heroes, Tempestus, Ogryns, Rattlings, Tech Priests, or Ministorum Priests. But that still opens up some play with things like Kazakin, Catachans, and a lot of the vehicles in particular. The buffs are integrated tactics, so each time a guard unit in your army is selected to shoot, you can select one enemy unit within 18 and visible. If you do, until the end of the phase, that guard unit can only target that unit, but it creates overlapping fire, which is essentially old crossfire. It gives a GSC unit that then targets that unit +1 to hit. So the overall combination plays are hit something with a guard unit first, then you get +1 to hit at range against it. So the idea is to have guard tanks comboing with GSC units, be that Ridge Runners or Neophytes or anything else, to get the +1s to hit. Ridge Runners love this. Hitting on 2s with Ridge Runners is always good. It's probably one of the big draws of this. But Neophytes also go up a level when they can hit a little bit better. So Primus Neophyte bricks or Benefactus Neophyte bricks become a lot more dangerous in combination with your guard units and tanks here as well. In terms of the enhancements, you've got Martial Espionage, 25 points. It's a GSC infantry model only. And every time a guard unit within 9 is selected to shoot, the bearer can use the enhancement and give them an additional point of AP. That only works on the infantry or the mounted units, unfortunately, so probably the best application of this is with something like Kazakin to make them a little bit more dangerous. You have Adaptive Reprisal, 15 points, GSC infantry model only, and you can once per turn target a friendly GSC unit within 9 of the bearer with heroic intervention for free. Not bad to have, cute to have, can help protect your units from an enemy charge by just slinging some cheap GSC stuff, a Neophyte brick or something, into the enemy's way so that they can't actually get into engagement with what they're trying to hurt, for example, your Leman Russ or Ridge Runners, and help to protect them. Next up, you've got the Hero Returned, wonderful enhancement name. This is a GSC infantry model only. Improve the leadership and OC control characteristics of models in the bearer's units by 1. I love this on a big Neophyte brick. That gives you a Neophyte brick with 60 OC before the characters are even accounted for. That gives you a very nice mission play tool, especially as an ingress threat to ingress in, drop with shooting, buffed by supporting Leman Russ or something like that, and then charge 60 OC onto a point, a regenerating tar pit of models. Very nice on an Icon Ward, for example, because that 60 OC also has a 5-up Feel No Pain and regenerates when it's on the point. I think there's a lot of play in this as a primary mission play piece, and I would definitely take the Hero Return. Next up, you've got Firepoint Commander. This is a GSC infantry model only. Each time you target the bearer's unit with the Fire Overwatch stratagem, you score hits on rolls of 5+ rather than 6. Fantastic on a Primus Neophyte brick. And I feel like 2 Neophyte bricks in this detachment work really nicely. One with Hero Returned, one with Firepoint Commander. Having an Overwatch control lane where the guns are all hitting on 5s with full rerolls is very, very tasty. It would also work on a Benefactus unit as well and have some lethal hits in the mix, but I think the Primus is probably the best way of making sure that unit is a very dangerous control lane. If we look at the stratagems, you have In the Shadow of Iron. Any phase, this is the move a blip token thing again. And you have to set it up within range of an Astra Militarum vehicle. I just don't think it's particularly important. Don't get too hung up on the cult ambush markers. Deep Strike Delivery and Returnees are the way to play GSC now. Next up, you have Regimental Reinforcements. This is a fun one which lets you put an Astra Militarum infantry unit into cult ambush like a GSC unit on a 3-up. Now, it's a bit of a gamble because it might not work, but being able to place additional units into reserves gives you even more stuff returning, right? Again, Kazakin for an output unit, or Catachans just for more OC. It's going to give you another way of getting some free stuff in the game, which comboed with the Resurgence points is a very powerful tool. So this is nice, just be ready to occasionally roll a 1 or a 2. Next up, we've got Suppress and Overwhelm. After a guard unit has shot in the shooting phase, you pick an enemy unit that they hit. They can't use Overwatch now, and you can reroll the charge against them. I think the issue with this one, although it is powerful, is that realistically, any units of yours you were looking to deliver into that charge, a lot of the time might have already been at risk of an Overwatch. So turning it off is not as effective. The reroll charge is nice, but I think the reality is that actually playing around Overwatch is still more important than this. If you were Overwatchable the first time, they'd have done it before your shooting phase even happened. So it might come up occasionally, but I don't think it's going to be particularly relevant. Next up, you've got Acceptable Losses. This is extremely fun. It lets a guard unit shoot into a combat that one of your GSC units is in. So it doesn't matter that you're in combat, you can still shoot Lehman Rust tank into that combat. But on a 5-up, after the attacks, that unit might suffer D3+1 mortal wounds. I think that's absolutely fine. Nice to be able to occasionally be tying the opponent up and still shooting. Definitely useful at times. Next up, you have Symbiotic Destruction. This is 1 CP in your shooting phase. You pick a guard unit and a GSC unit, select an enemy unit that's visible to both, and within range of at least one ranged weapon, and until the end of the phase, they can only attack that unit, but they get to reroll wound rolls of 1. Absolutely fine for just focusing down a unit between two units. Particularly nice to have Lehman Russ and Ridge Runners comboing to take out a hard target. Ridge Runners that hit on 2s and can reroll wound rolls of 1 is nice and spicy. Next up, you have a Dark Network. So in the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit is set up on the battlefield from reinforcements, a guard or GSC unit within 12, not monsters and vehicles, can make a normal move of up to 6. This is a sneaky little strategy. Definitely going to have some application. If the opponent's trying to drop in and counterattack and engage against your units, being able to reposition out of line of sight, or being able to push a unit out suddenly to cause an additional problem, or put more OC on a point, is really, really nice. And this is going to take a little bit of interplay to figure out, and only really works on the infantry and the bikes. But a 6-inch reactive move after your opponent has committed their hand and shown what they're doing with their reserves is very, very powerful, and will sort of shape and push the opponent to not drop within range to trigger this at times, which gives you some nice counterplay. So I think a Dark Network is a sleeper hit here. The reality of this attachment is it's not been played enough. I think there's actually an awful lot here. I don't think this is bad by any stretch, because Guard has a lot of cheap baseline effective units, and GSC has an awful lot of cheap effective units too. They combo well. Resurgent points mean that you're going to have lots of chaff coming back. You can have much more of an actual gun line in terms of traditional tanks, Lehman Russ and Ridge Runners working together, and you're also going to have enough little buffs to keep the other pieces singing, and a few tricks in there to get the opponent sort of choked up and drowned in bodies whilst you can still shoot them as well. I would say that this is probably more powerful than people give it credit for. It's just that it's not as obvious, and I think it's a little bit diluted in what it's trying to do. I would love to see more exploration of this by Guard players with GSC collections, because I definitely think the ceiling on this is a lot higher than we realise. And I will shout out one of my coaching mentees, Sam Squires, who has made a real good go of doing this, and I think has one of the 4 ones that this detachment has achieved to his name. So very well done, Sam. I think GSC in general, Xenocreed is the same. We don't explore the less obvious options enough. The player base isn't large, and so it's not always easy to know where to go. But I would say there is 100% more power in this than people necessarily appreciate. Okay, moving it along, we have Final Day. This was the Grotmus detachment, and this is all about combining Tyranids with GSC units. Now, I had a request for a guide on the Tyranid units to plug into this. I will certainly make that, and I can go through some combination plays in more detail. Final Day is quite unique in that it has some very powerful singular activations that are quite ridiculous at times, but you have to get a lot of synergy with the Tyranid units to get the most out of the detachment. So let's dive into it. The key things here are Psionic Parasitism, which is about comboing Tyranid units with your GSC ones. Essentially, Tyranid Synapse units gain the ability to inflict some mortal wounds on a GSC unit and then heal D3+1 mortal wounds themselves, and also gain +1 to hit. The primary issue with this is you need Synapse units to trigger the healing, and the only real Synapse units you can take here are the Neurolictor and the Hive Tyrant. You can only take Vanguard Onslaught units in this detachment, up to 1,000 points of them. If you are running these, you get a little bit of tar pit healing options to heal up particularly the big Tyranid monsters and make them more accurate in combat. Things like the Trigon or the Morlock really appreciate +1 to hit and work in this detachment. It's just that the big monsters don't synergize quite as well with the rest of what you're trying to do. The next crucial thing is Catalyst Aura, which Tyranid units gain, which essentially gives GSC units +1 to hit at range or in combat against enemy units that are within 6 of Tyranid units, full stop. Catalyst is the money here. Getting +1 to hit across all your GSC shooting opens up very good shooting for mining lasers in particular, but also the melee buffs to things like Rock Grinders, Aberrants, Pure Strains from the +1 to hit, and there's more buffs in here as well, are extremely potent. It means you need like quite a large number of Tyranid units that you're not afraid to lose, because obviously you have to get within 6 inches of the enemy, which means you're very likely to get hit back in return. So I personally love things like Gargoyles, Lictors, Death Leaper, other Vanguard Invader stuff that's cheap and cheerful and likes to be near the enemy to get the most out of these buffs. It means you need to be patient with and careful with your Tyranid resources, because if you run dry on Tyranid resources, suddenly you're just playing bare bones GSC Detachment dead sheets, and they're not as good. The enhancements, there's a couple of great ones and a couple of misses. You've got the Synaptic Auger, 15 points. This lets a Tyranid model double the number of wounds healed when using the Psionic Parasitism detachment rule. It is best on a Hive Tyrant. The reality with the Winged Hive Tyrant is that he is very expensive. He does hand out free strats, so he's not bad in this detachment, but I just don't think his damage output makes it worth having him healing up and staying alive as this detachment offers. Certainly nice to have if you are building around the Winged Hive Tyrant, though. Next up, you've got Enraptured Damnation. This is one of the reasons to play Final Day. Gives you a GSC unit that cannot have Overwatch used against it. I love this on a Patriarch with 10 Genestealers in this attachment. It's just a very powerful tool that breaks a lot of the normal rules. Means the opponent can't trivially kill half the Genestealers before they make combat, which happens quite a lot without it. Next up, you have Vanguard Tyrant for 25 points. The Winged Hive Tyrant model gains +1 strength and AP. This is okay. The Vanguard Winged Hive Tyrant has 6 attacks. It's not game-breaking on him to have a bit more AP and strength. I just don't know that you want to make a Hive Tyrant who's already expensive even more expensive. That's kind of how I feel about it, but I think people that do build around the big monsters would enjoy this. Next up, you've got the other money enhancement as far as I'm concerned, which is Inhuman Integration. This is 20 points, and it gives a GSC model sustained hits on its unit whilst within 6 of one or more friendly units. Or sorry, whilst the opponent is within 6 or more friendly units. So you've got a unit here that can have +1 to hit and sustained. Really, really powerful activation. And the potential to access further damage buffs in the stratagems means that a unit with Inhuman Integration is going to punch up phenomenally hard into almost anything. Next up, we've got the strats. So you have Hyper Ferocity. This is the money. This is the other reason to run this attachment, in my opinion. In the fight phase, you can give a GSC unit full rerolls to wound if you've got a NIDS unit within 6 of the target, or reroll wound rolls at 1. Aberrants and Pure Strains absolutely love this. Metamorphs love this. Melee Acolytes love this. It means that all your combat GSC units are coming in very accurate and with excellent wound rerolls. This means they get through the sorts of targets they don't typically. Minuses to hit and wound can really throw GSC units off in their efforts to damage things. This confirms kills very aggressively. I love it in particular on the Patriarch unit with Pure Strains, where the rerolls to wound and the dev wounds is absolutely brutal. Next up, we've got Psysurge, very useful little sleeper stratagem that lets you buff the Catalyst ability by 3. So if you have a couple of CP, you can put the reroll wounds on with a NIDS unit within 9 rather than within 6, which means you're less likely to immediately lose the Tyranid unit you're using. So occasionally, absolutely clutch. Next up, we've got Avenge the Star Children. After a Tyranid's character unit is killed, you can give all your GSC units +1 to hit and wound against the target. Great if you have something like Death Leaper running around and Death Leaper dies, and you need to push damage through whatever killed it. You can be judge carefully, I think, whether it's necessary to apply this. But there are certainly going to be big brick units in the opponent's army where getting +1 to hit and wound against them is lovely with your surviving units. Next up, we have Divine Imperative. This gives you +1 to charge and reroll charge for a GSC unit that has a Tyranid unit engagement range of its target. So getting a charge on an 8 with a reroll is okay. It is situational. I've not found it comes up an awful lot because a lot of the NIDS units I use don't get into the combat themselves, but it's not awful to have. Darting Attacks is particularly nice. This is a shooting on charge phase buff, and it lets a Tyranid unit fall back and shoot. This is great on Gargoyles. Gargoyles like to get in the action, bring their OC with them, bring the Tyranid boosting buffs for the GSC units, and if the opponent tries to tie the Gargoyles up and stop them doing this, you can just fall back, still shoot and scoot, move them around even further. I love having Gargoyles in this detachment, and they really like darting attacks. Finally, you have another very powerful strat, which is resistant tunnels. End of your opponent's fight phase, you can pick a GSC or Tyrannid unit that's not in engagement range and put it into reserves. Full on uppy downy is fantastic. Ridge runners love it. You can use it on your gargoyles to put them up somewhere and then go and threaten a lightly held objective. You can redeploy some combat that's got out of position. There's all sorts of powerful applications of this, and it keeps the opponent honest all game, because you can have things like neophytes or fanflamer acolytes on the board, and they know that if they leave any areas lightly defended, you can just get in places. And it increases Final Day's scoring ability as well. So Final Day is capable of putting out some phenomenal melee activations, especially through the reroll wounds and the +1 to hit. And it basically has slightly less activations than a GSC army normally does, because you have to build in Tyrannid units that don't punch as hard. But what you get is GSC shooting that hits a lot better. Mining lasers on rock grinders are suddenly accurate and dangerous. Ridge runners are very accurate and dangerous, hitting on 2s, and it gets you very powerful combat activations on aberrants, pure strains, metamorphs, those kinds of things as well. The Tyrannid side to me is a bit of a red herring. You're best building off around the Catalyst buff, getting that +1 to hit. But there's an awful lot you can do with Final Day, and it will catch people out because the damage spikes on this detachment are some of the highest in combat that you can muster. I'd say higher even than Brood Surge a lot of the time. And they get around some of the traditional things GSC hate, like minuses to hit or to wound as well. So that is it. I think that covers all the detachments currently available. I think there are tons of ways to play GSC right now. It's a very exciting army with a lot of different combinations. It's about identifying the style and theme you want to build into. The detachments genuinely feel and play radically different to one another. And I think that, if anything, is a triumph for the book and for the Grotman's release as well. They really do feel like completely different ways to play the army, and they offer you different sets of tools. There's a lot to be explored here. This is not an overplayed or overexplored faction. I still think there's an awful lot to be discovered. I'd love to see some Xenocreed or Brood Brothers lists out in the wild. I think there's definitely more to be done there. But even the originals like Outlander and Brood Surge and Final Day have a lot more to give in terms of how they're applied as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to making further GSC guides for you all. Please do hit the old like and subscribe. Please do leave a comment. If you want to support us financially as YouTube members, we'd massively appreciate it. You can sign up via the YouTube there. And if you'd be interested in some GSC one-to-one coaching and learning how to play the army, I'd be more than happy to work with you as well. I've had a lot of success with this army over the years. I'd love to help you get to that level as well. All right, guys, that's it for me for this one, and I will see you all again very soon. Lowest of Men, out. Bye-bye.